You don't meet people by chance. What you carry inside, what you've left unresolved, what you secretly believe about yourself. It all creates an invisible signal that draws certain people into your orbit. This isn't randomness. It's resonance. You attract what matches your inner frequency, whether you're aware of it or not. Carl Jung spent decades studying this phenomenon and concluded that the most significant relationships in our lives aren't accidents. They're appointments made by the unconscious long before our conscious minds ever catch up. So what are your relationships trying to tell you about yourself? In this video, you'll discover why certain patterns repeat, why some connections feel destined, and how every person you meet is actually a mirror reflecting parts of your own psyche back to you. Watch until the end, because once you understand how the law of resonance operates in your relationships, you'll never see another so-called coincidence the same way again. Think about the last time someone unexpected entered your life and changed everything. Maybe it was a stranger who said exactly what you needed to hear. Maybe it was someone who broke your heart so thoroughly that you had no choice but to rebuild yourself. Maybe it was a friend who appeared during your darkest moment and somehow understood without explanation. These encounters feel magical, fated, written in the stars. But according to Jungian psychology, there's something far more interesting than fate. There's synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that reveal the hidden architecture of your inner world. Jung believed that when two people meet under seemingly random circumstances, what's actually happening is that their unconscious minds have recognized something in each other. A shared wound, a complementary shadow, an archetypal pattern seeking completion. The conscious mind sees a stranger. The unconscious sees a mirror, a teacher, a catalyst, or sometimes a reckoning. This is where most people misunderstand the concept of attraction. We think we're drawn to people because of their qualities, their charm, their intelligence, their beauty, their humor. And while those surface traits matter, they're not the real reason you feel that pull. What actually happens is much deeper and often much more uncomfortable to admit. You're drawn to people who reflect what's unfinished inside you. The parts you haven't healed, the qualities you've disowned, the potential you haven't claimed. Jung called this projection, and it's one of the most powerful forces in human relationships. When you meet someone and feel an instant, inexplicable connection, you're not really seeing them clearly. You're seeing your own unconscious content reflected back through them. They become a screen onto which you project your inner images: the hero, the villain, the savior, the destroyer. And here's the twist. They're doing the exact same thing to you. This is why some relationships feel so intense right from the start. It's not love at first sight. It's recognition at first sight. Your psyche recognizes in them something it's been searching for, something it needs to integrate. Maybe they embody a quality you've repressed in yourself. Maybe they trigger a wound you've been carrying since childhood. Maybe they represent an aspect of your own potential that you're afraid to claim. Whatever it is, the unconscious doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your wholeness. And it will use other people as instruments to show you exactly what you need to see, even if, especially if, it's painful. Let's talk about why the same types of people keep showing up in your life. If you've noticed a pattern, unavailable partners, narcissistic friends, people who abandon you, people who demand too much, this isn't bad luck. This is your unconscious trying to communicate something crucial. Jung would say you're being given repeated opportunities to heal a core wound or integrate a disowned part of yourself. The unconscious doesn't give up easily. If you don't get the message the first time, it will send you another messenger, and another, and another. Each time the lesson becomes a little clearer, a little more urgent, until finally you wake up and ask the only question that matters. What is this pattern trying to teach me about myself? Here's a concrete example. Let's say you keep attracting emotionally distant partners. On the surface, you might think you just have terrible luck in love. But from a Jungian perspective, something much more interesting is happening. Perhaps you learned early in life that love equals abandonment. Perhaps you internalized the belief that you're only safe when you're self-sufficient. Perhaps there's a part of you that's terrified of true intimacy because it means being fully seen, vulnerabilities and all. So your unconscious draws you to people who won't get too close. It's not punishing you. It's protecting you, or at least it thinks it is. The pattern will repeat until you become conscious enough to recognize it, question it, and choose differently. That's when the synchronicities shift. When you change internally, the external reflections change too. One of Jung's most profound insights was about timing. Why do certain people enter your life at specific moments? Why does the person who breaks you appear exactly when you thought you were finally happy? Why does the teacher show up precisely when the student is ready? This isn't coincidence. It's the psyche's impeccable timing. Jung observed that people often experience significant encounters during transitional periods. After a breakup, a career change, a loss, a spiritual awakening, or a psychological breakdown. These are threshold moments when the ego's defenses are weakened and the unconscious becomes more active. In these windows of vulnerability, symbolic figures emerge. Someone who embodies exactly what you need to learn, confront, or integrate. The unconscious doesn't operate on your schedule. It operates on its own timeline, and it knows when you're ready for the next stage of growth, even if you don't think you are. There's something crucial to understand here. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people are teachers, not companions. They come to deliver a message, trigger a transformation, or show you something about yourself that you couldn't see before. Once that function is complete, the relationship often ends. This can feel devastating, especially if you've attached to the person rather than the lesson. But from the soul's perspective, the encounter was never about permanence. It was about evolution. You didn't lose someone. You completed a cycle. The pain you feel isn't failure. It's the ego resisting the natural flow of growth. When you learn to recognize these transitional relationships for what they are, sacred catalysts, you can hold them with gratitude instead of bitterness. They gave you exactly what you needed, even if it wasn't what you wanted. Let's go deeper into Jung's concept of the shadow. The shadow is everything about yourself that you've rejected, denied, or refused to acknowledge. It contains your repressed desires, your hidden shames, your disowned power, your unacceptable emotions. Most people spend their lives trying to keep the shadow buried, but it doesn't stay buried. Instead, it gets projected onto other people. This is why you might have intense reactions to certain individuals for no apparent reason. Someone irritates you immediately. Someone fascinates you beyond logic. Someone triggers a disproportionate emotional response. These aren't really about them. They're about you seeing your own shadow reflected in another person. Jung said that what you resist in others is often what you resist in yourself. And what you're irrationally drawn to in others is often a disowned part of your own potential. Here's where it gets really interesting. The people who trigger you the most are often your greatest teachers. They're showing you the exact qualities you need to integrate. If someone's confidence enrages you, perhaps you've disowned your own power. If someone's vulnerability makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you've been taught that softness is weakness. If someone's success triggers jealousy, perhaps you're afraid to claim your own ambition. The unconscious uses these charged encounters to force you toward wholeness. It doesn't care if the process is comfortable. It only cares that you become who you're meant to be, fully integrated, shadow and light combined. This is what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole by integrating all the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide. There's a particular kind of encounter Jung wrote about extensively, the meeting with what he called the anima or animus. For men, the anima is the unconscious feminine aspect. For women, the animus is the unconscious masculine aspect. When you meet someone who strongly activates this inner figure, it can feel like soul recognition. This is the person who seems to complete you, who feels like destiny, who awakens something ancient and inexplicable. But here's the paradox. You're not actually seeing them. You're seeing your own internal image projected onto them. This is why these relationships are often so intense and so volatile. You're not relating to a real person. You're relating to your own psychic contents. And when they inevitably fail to live up to the projection, when they reveal themselves to be human and flawed, the disillusionment can be crushing. But this too is part of the process. The goal isn't to find someone who perfectly matches your inner image. The goal is to integrate that image within yourself so you can finally see other people clearly as they actually are. Now, let's address something that confuses many people: the difference between destiny and resonance. When you meet someone who changes your life, it's tempting to call it destiny. But destiny implies that it was meant to happen regardless of your inner state. Resonance is different. Resonance says that you attracted this person because of what you were vibrating at that moment. Your beliefs, your wounds, your level of consciousness, all of it creates an energetic signature that draws matching experiences. If you change your inner state, you change what you attract. This is empowering because it means you're not a victim of fate. You're a co-creator of your reality. The person who broke your heart wasn't sent to punish you. They matched the frequency of your unhealed wounds. The person who inspires you isn't a random blessing. They match the frequency of your rising consciousness. And when you truly understand this, you stop waiting for the right person to appear and start becoming the right person, the one whose inner state naturally attracts what you actually want. Let's talk about what happens when a relationship ends. Most people experience breakups as rejection, failure, or abandonment. But from a Jungian perspective, endings often signify completion. The psychological work that relationship was meant to facilitate is done. One or both people have extracted the lesson, integrated the shadow, or outgrown the pattern. The relationship served its purpose. This doesn't mean it wasn't real or meaningful. It means it was exactly what it needed to be for exactly as long as it needed to be. When you can look at past relationships through this lens, something shifts. The bitterness fades. The resentment dissolves. You begin to see that every person who passed through your life was a teacher. Some taught you through love. Some taught you through pain. But they all contributed to your becoming. And when you can thank even those who hurt you, not because what they did was okay, but because you've alchemized the pain into wisdom, that's when you know you've truly healed. There's a particular kind of relationship that Jung found especially significant: the healing relationship. These are the connections that don't necessarily trigger you or break you. Instead, they hold space for you. They see you without judgment. They allow you to be messy, uncertain, broken, and real. These relationships activate what Jung called the healer archetype within you. They remind you that you're not fundamentally damaged. They show you that intimacy doesn't have to be painful. They prove that you can be loved without having to perform or pretend. These relationships are often quieter than the dramatic, passionate ones. They don't consume you. They restore you. And paradoxically, because they don't feed the ego's need for intensity, people sometimes overlook them or take them for granted. But these are the relationships that actually change you at the deepest level. They recalibrate your nervous system. They rewrite your attachment patterns. They show you what healthy love actually feels like. Here's something that took me years to understand. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. If you're carrying unresolved trauma, you'll attract people who trigger it. If you're living in fear, you'll attract situations that confirm it. If you're embodying unworthiness, you'll attract relationships that reinforce it. This isn't the universe punishing you. This is the law of resonance in action. Your inner state broadcasts a signal, and life responds with matching experiences. But here's the beautiful part. When you do the inner work, when you heal the wounds, integrate the shadow, and raise your consciousness, the signal changes. And suddenly, different people start showing up, not because you're luckier or more deserving, but because you're vibrating at a different frequency. The external world is always reflecting the internal one. Always. This brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in Jungian psychology: the collective unconscious. Jung proposed that beneath our personal unconscious lies a deeper layer shared by all humanity. This layer contains universal patterns and images he called archetypes: the mother, the father, the hero, the trickster, the wise old man, the shadow, and many others. When you encounter someone who activates one of these archetypal patterns, the relationship takes on a mythic quality. It feels larger than life because it is. You're not just relating to an individual. You're relating to a timeless human pattern. This is why certain relationships feel so profound, so fated, so much bigger than two people. The archetypes are constellating through you. And these encounters often bring the most growth because they force you to step into roles you've never played before. They challenge you to embody new aspects of yourself. They initiate you into deeper levels of human experience. Let me share a story that illustrates all of this. Jung once worked with a highly rational woman who refused to accept anything that couldn't be explained by logic. She was stuck in therapy, unable to access her emotional depths. One day, she told Jung about a dream involving a golden scarab beetle, a rare symbol in her cultural context. As she spoke, Jung heard a tapping at the window. He opened it, and in flew a real golden-green scarab beetle, extremely rare in that region. He caught it and handed it to the woman, saying, "Here is your scarab." The synchronicity shattered her rigid rationalism and opened her to the symbolic dimension of reality. This wasn't magic. This was the unconscious communicating through external reality. The beetle didn't appear randomly. It appeared at the exact moment her psyche was ready to receive its message. That's how synchronicity works. The inner and outer worlds align when consciousness is ready to shift. Now, let's talk about a concept that connects everything we've discussed: Joseph Murphy's work on the subconscious mind. In his book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Murphy explains that the subconscious doesn't distinguish between reality and imagination. It accepts whatever you impress upon it and then works to make that impression manifest in your external reality. This perfectly complements Jung's ideas about resonance and projection. If your subconscious is programmed with beliefs about unworthiness, abandonment, or scarcity, it will magnetize experiences that confirm those beliefs. The people you attract, the situations you encounter, the patterns that repeat, all of it stems from what's operating beneath conscious awareness. Murphy taught that by consciously reprogramming the subconscious with new beliefs, images, and feelings, you change the signal you're broadcasting. And when the signal changes, the responses change. This is why visualization, affirmation, and emotional repatterning work. They're not wishful thinking. They're technologies for changing your resonant frequency. When you combine Jung's depth psychology with Murphy's practical techniques, you get a complete map. Understand what you're unconsciously carrying, bring it into awareness, heal, and integrate it, and then consciously program new patterns. That's how you transform not just your inner life, but your entire external experience. The hardest part of this work is accepting responsibility. Not blame, responsibility. Blame says, I'm at fault for attracting bad people. Responsibility says, I'm powerful enough to shift my frequency and attract differently. There's a massive difference. Most people resist this teaching because it feels like victim blaming, but it's actually the opposite. It's victim liberating. As long as you believe that what happens to you is random, you're powerless. When you understand that your inner state shapes your outer reality, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop expecting others to complete you. You start doing the inner work that changes everything. And here's what happens. The people who no longer match your new frequency naturally fall away. Not through drama or confrontation. They just fade. And new people who resonate with your evolved state begin to appear. The universe doesn't withhold what you're ready for. It delivers what you're vibrating. One of the most beautiful aspects of understanding resonance is that it transforms how you see every person you've ever met. That ex who devastated you? They revealed your attachment wounds so you could heal them. That friend who betrayed you? They showed you where you were betraying yourself. That stranger who said something that changed your perspective? They were a messenger from your own higher consciousness. None of it was random. None of it was punishment. All of it was the universe conspiring through people to wake you up, make you whole, and return you to your true self. When you can look back at your relational history and see the perfect pattern, the hidden curriculum, the soul's ingenious design, everything changes. The resentment transforms into gratitude. The confusion transforms into clarity. The pain transforms into wisdom. And you realize that you never met anyone by accident. Every single person was exactly who you needed them to be for exactly as long as you needed them to teach you exactly what you needed to learn. So where does this leave you now? Right here, in this moment, with a choice. You can continue believing that relationships are random, that you're a victim of circumstance, that some people are just lucky in love while others aren't. Or you can accept the radical truth that you are the common denominator in every relationship you've ever had. Your inner state is the magnet. Your unhealed wounds are the attraction points. Your integrated wholeness is the solution. This doesn't mean you're to blame for how others treated you. It means you have the power to change what you attract moving forward. Do the inner work. Heal the wounds. Integrate the shadow. Raise your consciousness. Reprogram your subconscious beliefs. And watch as your external reality transforms to match your internal shift. The person you've been waiting for isn't out there. They're in here, waiting to be integrated. And once you become whole within yourself, you'll naturally attract others who are also whole. Not to complete you, but to complement you. Not to fill your voids, but to celebrate your fullness. That's when relationships become what they were always meant to be. Not mirrors of your woundedness, but reflections of your magnificence. The journey of understanding resonance in relationships is ultimately a journey home to yourself. Every person who enters your life is a signpost pointing you back to your own wholeness. Some point gently, some point violently, but they all point in the same direction, inward. Jung spent his life teaching that the psyche seeks integration above all else. It will use every tool at its disposal, dreams, symptoms, synchronicities, and especially other people, to guide you toward becoming who you truly are. Nothing is wasted. No encounter is meaningless. Every relationship, no matter how brief or painful, carries a seed of transformation. Your job isn't to understand it all intellectually. Your job is to feel it, learn from it, and let it change you. That's the real meaning of resonance. Not that you attract what you want, but that you attract what you need to become whole. And in that becoming, you discover that you were never really meeting other people at all. You were meeting yourself over and over again in countless beautiful and terrible disguises. If this video shifted something in how you see your relationships, hit the like button and subscribe to join this journey of deeper understanding. And drop a comment with your city. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Remember, every connection is a mirror, every encounter is a message, and nothing in your relational world is ever truly random. Until next time, keep walking your path. Everything you need is already within you.